Oh, boy. This is the pre-show portion of the show, waiting on both David and Steve Bob to get in. I can see now on the screen that we've got a bit of a mirror effect. That's nice. That'll fix once David pops in. Got a few great drops from Media Day yesterday from our good friend at Hornets Gifts. If you're not following him on Twitter, at Hornets Gifts, it's a great follow throughout the season, dropping amazing moving images on Twitter. But he gave us a couple of the best drops from the Media Day festivities. So that's Live at the Hive with Matt Carroll and Matt Rachinsky. That's some of the social media stuff they were doing. So let's take a peek. Let's take a listen. Here's one from Frank Kaminsky. Always trying to yuck it up.
I would have liked to have been a Jedi, but yeah, whatever.
Well, LeBron tried to be a Sith. LeBron tried to be the bad guy. Frank, of course, referencing his bobblehead coming up. He's a stormtrooper. Well, without the helmet, which apparently in Star Wars land is something that, stormtroopers without helmets, that's a no-no.
I would have liked to have been a Jedi, but yeah, whatever.
Here's something from Dwight Howard.
And I'll be back.
That's it. So I get no context. This is a context-free kind of deal. How about Malik Monk?
I'm always trying to win something, so I got to win something.
Oh, David.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you know what? I know what's happening.
What's going on?
Oh, there you are. Okay. Maybe it's going to stick with you.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, no. I got to go fix something, David. I'll be right back. Just enjoy this pre-show lobby music. All right. There we go. Much better. How you doing, D?
I'm all right, man. Sorry for running a few minutes behind.
It's okay. We're live. I just want to let you know we're live on YouTube. We're
live, baby.
We're gonna do the pre-show live. I don't think I'm gonna wait for Steve. We'll probably kick into the show and then he can just come in whenever.
Just keep it casual, man. It's all good.
That's it. I'm gonna re-rack the lobby music. Hey, I got a couple more of these you've missed. Should I roll through these real quick? The ones you've missed, these drops from Media Day that our good friend Kurt from at Hornets Gifts gave us?
Absolutely.
All right, here's number one.
I would have liked to have been a Jedi, but yeah, whatever.
That's Frank.
That was Frank. I was going to say Steve Clifford, but it's definitely Frank.
Dwight Howard.
And I'll be back.
Terminator references.
Oh, okay.
You got to drop
Yeah.
it. How about
So topical.
Malik Monk? Very honest.
I'm always trying to win something, so I got to win something.
Got to win something. A game even. Maybe a quarter.
Anything.
All right, here's another Frank Kaminsky drop. Got two more Franks.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life.
He's speaking for all of us there.
That's good. I need that as a ringtone. Give me some more Frank.
One more.
I call them my hater blockers.
Haters. Hater blockers.
I'm telling you what. I don't know if it's fantasy. I don't know if it's on court, but Frank is going to be the social media breakout star of the season.
I got one more thing to fix here. I love this. People, I don't know how many people are watching. If you are watching, live chat with us. We can put it up on the screen. I don't know how many people are watching this live stream, but that's okay, because it gives me a chance to just really get this right.
This is how the sausage is made.
Basically, I mean, this is all very, I think people should know, this is all very experimental. Okay. That should probably sound a little better to people.
That feels better. Does it sound better?
How was it for you? Okay.
Okay.
Fidel is watching. Cashflow. What's up? What's up, Cashflow? I love that name. All right, I'm going to turn down this lobby music, and we're going to get this show kicked off. All right, what do you say, kids? Well, we'll get it kicked off in 1 second. Hold on.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
This is Locked On Hornets, your daily podcast on the Charlotte Hornets and the NBA. We are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Search your podcast app for Locked On to get podcast on the NBA, the NFL, and fantasy sports. We are coming to you from the heart of the Queen City, BEA, beautiful uptown Charlotte, here in the Gittimer.com studios. If you're a salesperson and you need some help, make sure you're checking out Gittimer.com and the Gittimer Learning Academy. They have been proud sponsors of this podcast for 2 years now, David. So, yeah, check them out when you get a chance. They have helped us out a ton. Okay, we've got a great show. I'm Doug Branson. I'm joined on the phone right now by David Walker, the man, the myth, the legend. I believe Steve Bob Forrest, SBF 50. He's coming in to join me live in the studio here in a few moments. But we've got a big show, David, because training camp has begun. We've got to update the people on training camp, and we've got some people here on the live chat. We're streaming this live on YouTube to the public. Cashflow on right now. Fidel Cashflow says, from Connecticut, big Kemba Walker fan. We're going to talk some Kemba Walker today. We'll talk some Kemba. There's SBF. He just walked into the studio. He'll be here in just a moment. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, make sure you do that. You get these episodes, the audio episodes will go right to your phone immediately after I upload it. It's just instant. It's around 9 a.m. every morning. So you want to check that out. And if you haven't joined our Patreon yet, patreon.com/LOH, and that will give you access to our live post-game shows that are coming very, very soon. October 2nd, David, first preseason game against the Boston Celtics. And then the first home preseason game, it's after the 10th of October because they have like 3 away games to open the preseason. What's going on, Steve Bob? Steve Bob just walked in. Hey.
Hey, man.
Oh, I missed that, Dave. I was going no cans for a second there.
Yeah. I should get a little closer to that mic. There you go. Yeah. Let me hear those sweet baritones. All right. Let's talk about training camp. The Hornets were all back on the practice floor Monday for the first day of training camp. David, what are some things that you'll be paying attention to that will signal where the Hornets are and where they are going this season?
For me, Doug, in training camp at least, we don't need any more of the backup point guards hurt. I think everyone participated except for MCW and like the 5-on-5 drills. But just with the new additions, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, seeing how those guys fit in, seeing where Malik Monk fits in, if that's at point guard at all, if that's on the ball, off the ball. We know he has some history playing in both formats, if you will. But that's it for me. And how Howard, adjusts to playing with Nick Batum is actually something I'm pretty excited about. And so for me, it's all about the newcomers, Doug.
All about the newcomers for training camp. And one of the early storylines in camps across the NBA is the fact that they aren't as long this season because, of course, the NBA did some things to stretch out the regular season schedule to alleviate some of those back-to-backs and 4 games in 5 nights. And so they've reduced the preseason, which means that teams are not going to have as long to prepare for the regular season, opportunities to tune up and also introduce new things before they kick things off. At Media Day, head coach Steve Clifford said the trick is balancing introducing enough offense and defense with actually being good at executing it.
You have to have enough stuff in offensively and defensively, but it doesn't matter if you're organized but you're not good at any of it.
There you go. If you're not good, if you can introduce all the you can introduce all the offensive sets and defensive strategies you want to, but if you don't have the time to practice it or get it right, then it's no good.
Well, and
who cares?
How do you guys feel about Clifford just revealing the whole game plan there? That he wants these guys to actually execute. I don't know about this.
I feel like Steve Bobby would help if I potted up your mic. There we go. All right, let's try. I'm sorry.
Oh, was that?
There we go.
Dave!
It's good just to get.
It's funny because I told you to get closer to the mic, and then I didn't even turn your mic on. See, we need opportunities to tune up and get better.
So what you guys didn't hear is I was talking about execution and just things going well.
Right.
So no, but it's good, obviously for me to get some practice runs in there as well. That ruined the joke. So let's just continue.
All right, moving on. Daniel's on the line right now. He's on the live chat. Let's see if I can get this live chat up on the screen. You want to watch this?
Who we got?
Watch this magic here.
Who?
There it is. Oh, smooth transition, too. Daniel saying Buzz-a-Maniac checking in. He's voting for Buzz-a-Maniacs as our listener name.
And he wrote in Buzz-a-Maniac checking in.
I mean, he's lobbying for it.
Yeah.
He's going to the mat, if you will, for the Buzz-a-Maniacs.
For sure. I imagine him living in like the WB tower, like the Animaniacs.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Daniel, I don't hate it. I'm very what, and I say that
and that's the leader in the clubhouse right now. That's what we're working with.
Is tough.
If Doug does not hate it,
because I'm so conflicted about it, and I think that so many of the Buzz, Swarm, Hive, it's all been sort of run into the ground since the Hornets have returned. This is tough. This is a tough decision, but I actually that's a great suggestion by Daniel.
The Buzz-a-Maniacs, yeah, it is tough, and this is something that we need to get going before the season. That's why we're ramping up.
And it's important. Once we do it, we can't take it back. Like, we just got to roll with it. So this is an important decision to name our hardcore fans that have been listening to us and supporting us.
Right. Yeah, that's what they expect out of us by this point. I think you could take it back at any point. I think you could take anything back.
David, what do you think about Buzz-a-Maniacs?
I was getting ready to say, I mean, Dougaholics seem to be getting some legs around 130. Yes.
David just every day is like, guys, I'm getting a lot of reader emails.
Getting a lot of positive vibes on Twitter for the Dougaholics. I'm just saying the polls are still open.
Mouthman says he likes the nest. Maybe you could join the nest and become a Buzz-a-Maniac.
Well, my suggestion, which doesn't play into calling the viewers anything, but you can unlock the benefits to get into the nest and become a Dougaholic, which I'm worried about
Inception. We're going several levels deep with this.
The only concern with Dougaholics for me is that kind of opens the door for people to stalk you.
That's what
you're
I
encouraging stalking behavior, which, Doug, I'm already worried about that for you. So,
well, you follow me around constantly, so this is
I am in the studio right now. The call is coming from inside the studio.
Hey, for players, I'm going to get us back on track here, whether you like it or not.
Damn.
So for players that have been around the organization for a while, it might not be as big a deal, this reduction in the preseason. They're going to be ready. They've known Steve Clifford for a while. You don't have a new coach or anything like that. But for the new additions, like, for example, Dwight Howard, they have a lot to pick up and quickly. For Howard's part, he said yesterday at the first day of training camp that he's catching on quickly. Well,
yeah,
we'll figure that out here in a second. All right. Anyway, he said basically, I'll tell you what he said. He said that basically the fact that there are so many veterans on this team is helping him adjust. They're getting him up to speed. That offensively, he's got some things to pick up on, but defensively, Steve Clifford actually runs a very similar system that he was used to in Orlando. So he's catching on quickly there, but offensively, he's got a lot to to figure out. While we're talking about Dwight Howard, we have to talk about what we're hearing from the Low Post podcast. Did you get a chance to listen to this or read anything about it, Steve?
I listened to the one from yesterday, with Kevin Arnovitz.
Yeah, so ESPN's NBA reporters Zach Lowe and Kevin Arnovitz were discussing the Hornets and got on the subject of Dwight Howard and his issues gelling in Atlanta. Kevin Arnovitz said, quote, "He makes everybody miserable. We can read about the reinventions a million times, but there is just no empirical evidence that anyone wants to play with this person and that any coach cares to have him around." Harsh words there from Kevin Arnovitz. Lowe then followed up with this. "I've heard multiple stories of Hawks players learning about the trade and screaming with jubilation into their phones." Now, that last bit is anecdotal, but it is important to note that both Arnovitz and Lowe are very plugged in and highly respected around the league. So, David, what do we think about this report from the Low Post podcast?
Well,
Daniel says they're worrisome.
Okay, I think we can safely say, are we in agreement here that the votes for Dwight Howard for Teammate of the Year were a joke?
That was
a
ironic.
practical prank? A practical joke. Yes, okay.
And kind of like that has to hurt his feelings, right? Like he knows that.
I mean, kind of a dickish move, but hey, he got the award, right? So I guess that's all that matters. I would say this, Doug, and anyone reading these, I don't know how much of this is news. This is not a new narrative for Dwight Howard, and I think the Hornets still make the trade if these shouts of jubilation had been known prior. I mean, the Hornets are taking a swing. They're taking a risk here. That's well known. These new revelations don't really change any of that. It's not a great look, of course, to have some of this come out, but it's not like this is the first time Dwight Howard has been called, disgruntled or a bad teammate, right?
Right. And I think, and I wrote about this earlier in the off season, but this all plays in this thing for Dwight, like you said. Shameless plug. I didn't say where it was, but the Dougaholics.
You should.
They'll track it down.
That's the idea. At thehive.com?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There. It's that is the narrative, David. That's been existing. We were starting there to begin with. I mean, it's a little bit more incendiary when two very plugged in guys talk about it openly on a podcast, which I mean, it's the fact that it's like a news hit is a little bit worrisome. But I would say my point was that these are all things that accumulated over his career. I think that would be definitely troubling to me if Dwight was coming into training camp and was like, I'm going to prove all these guys, and that's not what I am. Like he's almost like not addressing that in a way. He's just saying all the right things. He seems to be very into being in Charlotte, and he's making a very strong point on social media early on to like get involved and like really brand himself with the Hornets. And the other thing that I would say, that no coach would want him. Clifford's been very openly like, I pushed for that trade. Yeah. I wanted this guy. If you look at his career, the only time that Dwight was not a problem was when he was in Orlando and he was, playing. Clifford was obviously not the head coach, but he was there, and Clifford and Stan are very close as a coaching duo. So I think,
So here's the thing. So Howard was agitated with his role essentially in the playoffs and his perceived role on the Atlanta Hawks offense. And he's had issues with his role on offense with multiple teams. Now, at Media Day yesterday, Steve Clifford said that he thinks that Dwight Howard is one of the most efficient players in the league and that he could still be a dominant player in the post. And Nick Batum said he's going to make sure Dwight Howard gets post touches. Yeah. And we've gone over it, David. He was a really efficient player in the post last season, and he's great at pick and roll as well, but he's a really good, efficient post player. So one of two things are going to happen. Either he's going to be good in the post and they don't get him touches, and then Dwight has a point, or Dwight regresses in the post and they don't get him touches and he gets agitated about that, and then the team will have no choice. Or the third option, the team actually does get him touches and he's efficient in the post. So I mean, we just, these are knowns. I mean, you can worry about it, but these are knowns. Could Dwight get agitated about his role in the offense and cause problems in the locker room? Sure. Yeah. Could a combination of a playing in a very different offense than the Hawks and his sort of post-Atlanta outlook and a past relationship with Steve Clifford stave off any of those issues? Sure. Most importantly, I think this is the point to understand. Was this the best option for the Hornets, who wanted to stay in contention in the East, had little cash to make that happen, and, a serious basketball and financial question mark in Miles Plumlee? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
So when I read this, I totally agree. Can't argue with much of the evidence that Lowe and Arnovitz have put out in the past, but I still think it was fine under the circumstances.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sorry, go ahead, David. No, I know you have a point.
No. Yeah. That was my point as well. I mean, I think we're all in agreement there. It's like, what else were the Hornets going to do? They were hamstrung as it was. Clifford had been trying to get Howard here even before his time in Atlanta, and it was a way to improve the team. And like Doug said, and like we just said, it was a risk. We've known it was a risk. Like, these revelations don't really change anything.
A big thing for me, though, was that it came out of nowhere. That is true that Clifford wanted him. That to me is coincidental and fortuitous. Like, the fact of the matter is, the narrative at the time was just as much, I can't believe the Hornets got out from that Plumlee deal. I mean, that was the crazy thing. We had the cap space to absorb Dwight, but that wasn't really, it's not like, this is the first time in Dwight's career that he hasn't picked where he wants to go, aside from obviously getting drafted by Orlando. Every other time was him forcing his way somewhere, him making it known that he didn't want to be there anymore. The narrative was always, he's the superstar on this team. I mean, that was in my piece on atthehive.com and by Steve Bob Forrest.
Shameless plug.
No, but it's true. I think that for a guy who's known to have ego issues and like get his feelings hurt and maybe perhaps a bit misunderstood on that front, that because of the way that he came to this team and because like definitively,
it's a great point.
The narrative is definitively that he's a problem and that he's just not the same guy anymore. I think all that accumulates to he has to realize that and that he wasn't really wanted. It's like he just got here.
Well, it's a great point that he didn't choose to be here, because now all of us, when you choose to be somewhere, there are meetings, and he's talked about sort of expectations that he had for coming to Atlanta and discussions that he had with the team about his role, and he got disappointed by that. But in this situation, he's sort of coming in to a team that has an established locker room chemistry. That's the thing, David. This team has spent years, re-signing veterans and establishing locker room culture to prepare, I think, for this moment. Because if you want to be elite, if you want to compete, you're eventually going to have to take a risk on a player in terms of ego, in terms of locker room, chemistry or whatever. Especially
if you're Charlotte, if you're the Hornets, especially right now, you are a small market team. You are the Hornets. In the big scheme of things, like, you're not making much noise. So, like, when do you have another opportunity to add, yes, maybe not a superstar level, caliber player at this time, but a superstar at one time and a guy who can still contribute and who is not Miles Plumlee? Like that, I mean, I think Steve Bob hit it on the head. Like, the narrative certainly from people that are watching this team was like, oh my God, they somehow dumped the Plumlee contract. And that can't be forgotten. I do think from a national perspective, there was some like, what is MJ doing? How is he going to add Dwight Howard into this? And like, even if it implodes, even if it blows up in their face, it was well worth the risk.
That's the thing. At the end of the day, to sound like a coach here, at the end of the day, guys, the fact of the matter is, if it blows up, the narrative is still like, from a PR perspective, you're like, look, we got off of that Plumlee contract, which people agree. Also, Zach Lowe has said, if not the worst, one of the worst contracts in the NBA. That guy averages less than 3 points a game for his career, which hey, look, so do I. All right. I'm under 3.
Right. You're under
technically.
3. Right.
But
0 is under 3.
But I mean, that to me, like, you could have told me they just got rid of him, bought him out, and I would have been happy. So the fact that we're getting an upgrade.
One wants to say that. Yeah.
What you guys are saying is it's better to have Dwight and lost than to never have Dwighted
than to
at all.
Yes.
Go to the White House.
I got that drop. I've saved it.
It's better to anything than Miles Plumlee is how I'd put that.
I don't know.
Exactly. Do you guys feel like there is another narrative either starting to form or just kind of organically growing up that like this whole disaster last year in Atlanta was somehow Dwight Howard's fault? Like, I'm not saying anyone's come out and saying that, but like it sure feels like there was a feeling of that in the locker room. If all these players are super happy and they could have paid him to go away, I guess.
I'm like, it's like almost the opposite to me. It's like, what narrative was there? What was he supposed to do there? That team that's going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year now. And they didn't, they put it together terribly. Remember, this was the team that had the 5 All-Stars like 3 seasons ago. Yeah. And now it's not Dwight's fault. If anything, it just highlights how mismanaged that front office has been run the last few years. And then this new guy came in very similar to, we've seen that a lot now with the Cavs too, but the new guy came in, he was like, I'm just going to cut bait. That was his first move. That guy had been in the job for a day.
Yeah, and if Howard doesn't worry about the narratives, and if Howard just focuses on gelling with this team, then I think the Hornets will. If he takes Frank's advice,
I call them my hater blockers.
Block the haters. Just block the haters. Right. Okay, let's move on to one of our stories that we picked up on Media Day. Jeremy Lamb, harder, better, faster, stronger. I don't know if training camp is more crucial for any player than it is for Jeremy Lamb right now. He's entering his 3rd season with the Charlotte Hornets. Offensively, he improved as the year went on last season. That, combined with a 2nd straight early and productive summer, has caught the attention of his head coach. And I don't know if you saw some of these photos, David and Steve, but he looks a lot stronger. Like the arms look.
Watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best shape, # best shape of his life. But he's looking great. Kemba Walker said he's not the same skinny kid he knew in college. We'll start with this question. Steve, how will added strength help Jeremy Lamb carve out a role this season for the Charlotte Hornets?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I mean, I wouldn't have said that was his weakness. It doesn't hurt, obviously. I mean, that to me points to like he's going to try to get some more of a low post game or a back to the basket like turnaround game going, because he's primarily been a slasher and spot up guy.
Unlocking new parts of his offense. David, what do you think? Strength? How will it help Jeremy Lamb be a better Charlotte Hornet?
Yeah, I don't know either, to be honest with you. I think that it all plays into this taking care of his body thing better, which goes back to last season, which is something he said he was going to do. So it certainly helps. I mean, you don't want to lose any of that explosiveness, but I think, 82 game season, you want to have a little extra strength. We'll see. I mean, this is the narrative. Speaking of narrative, this is the Jeremy Lamb narrative. We'll see. I mean, we've said this before each of the last couple seasons. Is this the season things change? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he drove to the basket a lot more last season. Once his three-point shot sort of fell apart, he became more of a slashing guard. And I think it will open up sort of a different dynamic if you were to pair him with Malik Monk. I think having him, be bigger and stronger will just help him in terms of pairing with Malik Monk. But it's also going to help him stay healthy, stay on the floor. He said, a few years ago he could really feel, every contact, every hit that he took when he drove to the basket. It's just sort of accumulated over the season, and by the end he was gassed. And so you hope that that's going to help that as well. I mean, he finished at the rim extremely effectively last season. He had a 57.7 true shooting percentage despite shooting under 30% from the three-point line. He did say that he's working on his three-point shot. Let's take a listen to what he's been doing.
I watched film, try to see where I was comfortable shooting, the shots I made, how my feet were, how my release was, and looked at the shots I missed, how my release was, how my feet were. So just trying to tweak, that.
Let's go out to the chat line. Daniel saying, I remember 3 years ago when Gary Neal was having the best training camp ever and it did not pan out. Hopefully Lamb delivers. Lamb with muscles, he'll bang on everyone, says Cashflow. And then Mouthman says it probably will help his stamina. Hopefully he's worked on his three. You just heard it there, Mouthman. He's looked at the video, trying to study what worked and what didn't work. He said often he got caught shooting off the dribble, which is not necessarily his strength. He likes more to shoot off the catch. So it's good. I think that, you're right, David. This has been the storyline for a few years, and maybe just certain guys take longer to develop than other guys. And it sounds like he has his routine established. He's proven that he can deal with the rigors of an NBA season. He's sleeping better, eating better, getting in the weight room. And now once you sort of what's the man's pyramid of needs, like you have to take care of your basic needs before you can, worry about philosophy or politics or culture. I think the same thing goes for Jeremy Lamb. Like you got to take care of your sort of basic, your body before you can start, really digging into tape and going, okay, I got to do this with my 3-point shot. I've got to, tweak this, do that. Like if you feel like shit, by the end of the year, it doesn't matter what tweaks you've made. If you're not, because that's going to affect your mentality.
Yes. So from what you're saying, it sounds like we can expect some political hot takes though from him later. Now that he has his needs met. I do think it's good. Like the exciting thing for me, and I think we've all kind of touched on this previously, is that Jeremy Lamb. It's kind of as Bush Jr. would say, fool me can't fool me again. But I'm just like, let's see something, man. Let's see something.
Show me. Well, that goes for Dwight and the Hornets in general. I think it's like you heard if you listen to that Low Post podcast, they talked about the Hornets being boring. That there was nothing really to say about this team, and honestly, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Like this team has to, and Clifford said the same thing. That several players have to get in contention for end of season awards. It can't just be Kemba. These players have to show people something.
And I just think to finish that point up, that Jeremy Lamb doing something, it shows that he may be aware of that he really needs to get it in gear this year. That he's just the fact that there's any story about him in training camp is a positive to me. That he's like beefed up enough for that people are like, oh, look at Jeremy. I think that's a good.
That's what they say
on my bodybuilding forums, my straight bodybuilding forums that I go to. Yes, that's the narrative on there, and narrative is the word of the day here, guys.
David. Yeah, it really is. David, what is that and hater blockers? David, what's your key to staying in shape?
My key to staying in shape?
Yeah, just what's your key? You're pretty svelte.
Hey, thanks, buddy. My key is actually not sleeping. I go the opposite approach and just never sleep, which is it's still on the outer edges of.
It's hard to sleep while that's happening. Yeah. That works for vampires, and they live forever. So I think you're onto something there, David. And to key in with that, also the platelet plasma rich.
Yeah, just get
well, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It's the vampire weekends, the vampire diet you got to go on.
I just inject that wherever it's necessary.
Yeah.
I'll just right to the gut sometimes when I get a little bit of flab.
I've been meaning to tell you should see a doctor.
All right, yes, I have many rashes. All right, thanks so much. That'll do it for us, unless anyone has any other thoughts on training camp before we get out of here.
No, hashtag many rashes on that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfectly weird place to leave this one off.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Hornets here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Hornets for the updates from training camp. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Overcast, Stitcher, whatever you use to get your podcast. Just search Locked On Hornets and tell a friend. We're about to kick this thing off, and we want as many Hornets fans as possible to know where they can get the absolute best Hornets talk anywhere. We're back again tomorrow with more. For David and Steve, I'm Doug. Go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.